Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who loves to thoroughly review the weekend action.
It's my favourite.
His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, more weekend action. Let's watch more games from random leagues.
So you did the weekend review with Ryan.
I done did
But
it.
as is the new tradition, we're going to have the Daryl and Taylor weekend review with listener questions that's a bit more US focused and a bit more tacticsy.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Just a little less Ryan Bailey. Let's get
a little less Ryan Bailey, yeah. There's a little less Oasis because you won't let me talk about it.
That is correct. I will not.
Also, later on Monday evening, I think it comes out on Tuesday, we're going to be appearing on a Premier League quiz show called Who Kicked the Corner Flag.
That is correct.
So keep your ears out for that.
And I look forward to us trying not to take it seriously and then both of us getting competitive when it comes to trivia.
I think we'll be competing against each other.
Oh, good.
Right?
That's good. That won't go wrong at all. I won't be actively working against you from across this table.
Things will be thrown. Things will be thrown in the office. All right, so this is the Tuesday show.
Yar.
Wednesday, we think we're getting the US men's national team roster.
Yar.
According to US Soccer, we think it's going to be Wednesday. We should have a review of that roster out for you. Mm-hmm. But
hopefully it won't just be screaming and crying and expletives.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, so I'm going to be going to Boston, part of that clinical trial that we've definitely talked about on the show, right?
So there will be some expletives then.
Well, there'll be some anesthesia.
Okay.
So you could get Daryl's wackiest ever take.
Medicated Daryl.
Medicated Daryl talking about Jesse Zada's being selected over Josh Sargent.
Every now and then, we got one of these recently. Every now and then we get people asking us if we've ever listened to us at like half speed or whatever because we sound very drunk. Maybe that will be the case where you just sound like you're at half speed.
Talk at half speed.
Yeah. Yes.
That should be interesting. But today,
yes, sir.
Yeah, today we're going to review the weekend action via listener questions, starting with. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Craig Muir. Craig Muir says, a lot of my Chelsea fan friends are optimistic about Christian Pulisic, I think rightly, given this weekend's performance, but continually state he needs to, quote, bulk up, unquote, for the league. I'm wondering at what point he should bulk up to. And Craig says he worries too much bulking up, obviously not bodybuilding style, may impact his speed, balance, and acceleration. So,
I say
Taylor,
no, full bodybuilder. Let's just get him massive.
as big as possible.
It's just a series of circles. That's all I want.
But here's what I wanted to do. Always skip leg day.
Yes,
so
of course.
I want Pulisic
Tiny
to be
little pencil legs.
Massively top heavy.
Of course. Big Bird, if you will. Yes, we're looking for a Big Bird type situation.
So what do you think? Christian Pulisic, he is like short-ish, right? 5'7".
So we did we did this while we were eating lunch. 5'7" and weighs anywhere between 137 and 155 pounds, depending on who's reporting it.
Which feels
and
about
he's between
right.
5'7" and 5'8", again, depending on who's reporting.
Which feels about right.
It does.
And we have seen him get bodied off the ball. I remember the first weekend when he made his Chelsea debut in the Premier League. He came off the bench and he had that really smart, quick 1-2, and he had this burst of acceleration down the wing. And Paul Pogba just stepped in his way and floored him.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Premier League, you skinny man.
Yes.
Is what he said.
Worth noting, like Paul Pogba can do that to even the largest of humans.
This is true, yeah.
But it still stands that yes, that is a thing that it seems he is susceptible to, and that goes back to like even with the USA, like against Cuba, like getting kicked, knocked off the ball a little bit by bigger and maybe stronger players does seem to be an issue.
So, okay, let's start with that then. Do you think Pulisic needs to add some bulk to be successful, or does the current size and weight of Christian Pulisic, does that work in the Premier League?
I'm not actively trying to be difficult with this answer, just so you know. My answer is I don't think he does unless he needs to. As in, if he's playing the way Frank Lampard wants him to play and he is able to handle it and able to handle the physicality, then I guess he can continue to do what he wants. I think that if there's a chance he's getting knocked off the ball too easily or maybe can't handle some of the physicality, and I think I would kind of maybe agree that will end up being the case, then yeah. I think
Has it been the case so far? Have you seen evidence of that in his first 3 games?
No, I mean, aside from just the usual getting knocked off the ball, which is sort of part and parcel for a person who's 5'7", 5'8", and like 140 pounds thereabout, like, yeah, you're going to be able to, if a person has 40 pounds on you, as a lot of center backs and midfielders do, they're going to be able to knock you off a little bit.
So this is my contention is, if he gains like 10 pounds and a bit of muscle, I don't think it's going to make that much difference. I think the key thing for Christian Pulisic is he has the speed of thought and the acceleration that basically he gets away from things before it gets physical. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean,
his physicality is his pace, not his strength.
Maybe, but I think that, like, to an extent, yeah, but there are plenty of people who are just as fast as him in the Premier League.
Okay.
And especially when he has the ball. then you slow down a little bit. You got the catch-up logic from FIFA, as it is.
Is that a real thing?
In the game, it is. Like, they'll always catch up to you if you have a ball because physics say that you should be slower
with the ball.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I think I'm somewhere in between here of Craig and his friends, where I would say that, he probably, I wouldn't mind him getting a little bit more definition in the like shoulders, neck area, sort of. I don't want him to go full Xherdan Shaqiri, but like I think, a little bit more definition there. We were looking at some photos of him when he did his Chelsea inauguration or whatever. Yeah. And he definitely looks...
Inauguration.
Yeah, so it's a
on
very
the Washington
formal
Mall. That's where
exactly.
They did it.
He looks like a teenager wearing a Chelsea jersey that his uncle bought for him that's one size too big.
He does have very slim shoulders,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think maybe a little bit more definition there. Not even necessarily just to be able
photos?
to... Yeah, exactly. Just to make himself look better in the inauguration. But also because there is, I think, like a little tiny psychological element of like if you hit a person and they kind of bump you back, even if you move them because they're smaller than you, there can be that moment of like, oh, okay, they're a little bit stronger and like you can handle things a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think, he probably... It wouldn't hurt him to gain a little bit of muscle, but I also take Craig's point that like we don't want this kind of top-heavy big bird trying to run around the league. I don't think that works either.
What about the idea that he's only 20 and people tend to naturally bulk up a little bit around early 20s, right? He's still, in some ways, got a teenager-ish body, but he's only just stopped being a teenager, right? So maybe a year or two he does basically thicken up a little bit just naturally. Yeah. Did you call it, we were talking about this at lunch, you said at some point you get dad arms?
Yes. What
does that mean?
My friend in college
I deliberately waited to the podcast to get the explanation.
It was one of those like weird random college days, like on a Saturday where we were laying around and my friend was just like, man, I want dad arms. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, like every dad just gets big arms at a certain point. That's how it works.
So you guys were like 20 at this point?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, probably 22 at that point. But
and we did some Google image search research, right? Yep. So we looked at Leo Messi at 20. Much bigger now than he was then, but still a little thicker than Pulisic is. And we looked at Ashley Young.
Ashley Young is the one.
Who I think is something of a good comparison. We would expect maybe Pulisic becomes a better player than Ashley Young, but Ashley Young's not a bad player to be, right? I mean, I know right now no one's too excited about him, but he was an exciting winger and attacking midfielder.
My silence will speak as no comment.
Okay. But Ashley Young, who is kind of he's got some upper body strength now. At 20, the Watford jersey was just like floating off of him. Yeah. Right?
It was.
And his shoulders were very narrow.
I mean, it was like mid-late 2000s, which is the time when like, why not? Giant baggy jerseys. What could go wrong? But yes, I think Ashley Young is a good example of like what maybe like a similar body type. And I would say also a sort of cautionary tale in that I think of him as putting on all that weight around the time he transitioned to being more of a defensive player for United.
Yeah, right.
And I don't mean to say like put on weight as in got big, but more so just like he put on muscle. You can see he worked out a lot to try to get that kind of physicality up or the ability to be physical up.
Maybe he should have spent more time practicing defending than bodybuilding.
Maybe he should have, and so that
was unnecessarily snarky.
I'm okay with it. And so I think that's the sort of extreme you don't want to tip into, where you like almost look top heavy, where you look like you've put on too much muscle, and that can be a thing. And while that sounds like counterintuitive of like, well, no, you want all the muscle. There are all the stories about different players, like Josie Altidore, one of the kind of frequent if not accusations, then like rumors is that basically, or ideas at least, is that he like put on a bunch of weight and that caused some of the hamstring problems.
I believe Altidore said that himself.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So not even a theory, not even a rumor, it's just a thing he said himself.
Because the danger is if Pulisic does start bulking up now, it kind of changes his body shape, maybe changes his game a little bit. He's already transitioning to the Premier League with the skill set he's got. I wouldn't make it harder for him right now by asking him to do the same, but suddenly be 20 pounds heavier and have to figure out how that whole thing works.
Yeah.
Yeah? But all right, we have two more Pulisic questions.
I think we should just say, just eat a bunch of pasta. It'll go well. It's the best way. Yeah.
Get them fish and chips in you. Carter Schmidt asks, do you see problems with Chelsea's attack because they seem to lack a true winger? Everyone, including Pulisic, prefers to cut inside. Before we answer this, did you guys talk Chelsea-Norwich on the weekend review? So if people didn't see, Chelsea won 3-2 against Norwich. Yeah.
They did.
With an assist from Christian Pulisic, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Similar to my answer with Craig's question, I would say that like I don't think it's a problem if Frank Lampard doesn't think it's a problem. Which is to say that like maybe if they're aiming for Olivier Giroud, you want a wide player who can cross that ball in and put it on his head. But with Tammy Abraham, it does feel like the mobility he offers in relation to Olivier Giroud is what Frank Lampard is going for. And to me, then he's looking for interplay and switching of positions and fast-paced like passing moves. And with that in mind, I don't know if you necessarily need a true like wide player to ping that ball in.
And I think the real answer is, if you look at Chelsea's first goal...
My answer's not really.
No, but I think the definitive answer. I really feel confident about this. That's why I'm saying that. It's kind of arrogant for me to say that, right? I apologise. If you look at the first Chelsea goal against Norwich, the Tammy Abraham goal, Christian Pulisic receives the ball on the right, dribbles to the interior, Azpilicueta overlaps.
Yep.
And Azpilicueta provides the cross for the Tammy Abraham goal. So the reason that I don't think it's a problem is that, Pulisic will come inside, Mount will come inside, Azpilicueta and it's been Emerson, right, at left back, will overlap and they will provide the width. So then you have 3 attacking players in Abraham and the 2 wingers central, and you have Azpilicueta and Emerson being those wingers and literally putting crosses in, which is what Azpilicueta did for the first goal.
Yep.
So that's why I don't think it's a problem.
I don't think it's a problem, especially if that's what Frank Lampard asks. I would add, though,
and it seems to be his plan.
Yeah. It becomes a problem maybe if Frank Lampard finds himself in hot water, and sending both fullbacks far forward to help with the attack can definitely err on the side of defensive confusion.
Well, that's Chelsea's style this year. Right? I honestly think that one of the great things about Christian Pulisic at Chelsea is, one, we get to watch Pulisic play in the Premier League, but two, there's going to be goals every time you watch Chelsea one way or another, because they play so attacking and so wide open that they're either scoring or they're conceding.
All right. That's a way to put it. I'm sure Chelsea fans like and hate that all at once.
Well, this weekend it was fun because there were goals at both ends, but they finished up with more goals than the opposition.
There we go. That's always the goal. That's always the goal. One more Christian Pulisic question?
Yeah, why not?
Robert Rowan. I like that you react to this as though you're not the one who assembled the questions. Robert Rowan, if Pulisic had gone to Manchester United, would his current situation be better or worse?
I think worse, because there's more pressure at Manchester United.
Why do you say that?
Because Manchester United spent money and they've got this coach, and it's like, okay, this is the season. Things have been going wrong. This is the season we get it right. Whereas at Chelsea, it's that things have gone pretty well, but transfer ban, Sarri's gone, Lampard's in. It's almost like, we've talked about this a lot, right? You almost kind of get a pass for this season.
It's a grace period. You get a year grace period to but they didn't really have any signings, and we're not sure if it's going to be Frank Lampard, and they're trying to figure stuff out, and they got young players coming through. So, we'll see what happens with Pulisic versus, Man United, if he's not producing from day one or at least match day 3, you then have some problems and a lot of pressure. And there are definitely headlines about how he's a flop. I haven't seen those yet. I think there would have been if he'd gone to Man United. I
weirdly find it easy to picture Pulisic at Man United, because I know there's that photo of him going there when he was a kid, and I think he kind of likes Manchester United, but he didn't like Jose Mourinho is one of the reasons maybe he didn't go in the past. But I could see him being Danny James, for example. I think that's maybe a good... is that his correct name?
Daniel James?
Daniel James, the winger.
I'm more so what do you mean?
Well, just if they'd signed Pulisic instead of James, I could see Pulisic having a similar start to the season to James, which would be doing pretty well.
I disagree a little bit.
You do? Okay.
I think of Daniel James, at least for Man United right now, as being more of a almost blunt instrument of he is very, very, very fast, and you can sort of use that in whatever way you need to, which can be just running at defenses and play him the ball over the top, or it can be running at defenses with the ball and they're kind of backing off because they're not sure if they can handle that counterattack. I don't think of Pulisic as being, yes, he's very quick. He is not, I don't think, as fast as Daniel James. And so I think
I'd watch that foot race.
I think he would lose
with
it.
the ball.
I can say with confidence he would lose it, because I think Daniel James is the fastest player at Manchester United right now.
Okay.
So that's where I come in with that one. I don't know if Christian Pulisic could keep up. Well, I guess we'd have to find out. Maybe we'll see that in a game. But I also think that Daniel James has been a bit more of a we'll bring him in when the situation requires, if we need another wide attacker.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been his role so far. And I would rather see.
He started? Didn't he start?
He started this weekend. Yeah. But I think that's
and scored.
This is true. This is true. He did another one of his sort of did he overrun the ball for a minute? I'm not sure, but then he's able to score it, and it's a great goal.
He's too fast for the ball.
Yeah, I just think of him as more of a and it does come down to body shape, I guess. To go back to the original question, I think of him more as a physical runner who can definitely play with the ball at his feet, Daniel James, but is less of a going to try some step overs, going to try to take people on and slow it down and then do a step over, but then have a 15-yard lateral pass to set up his teammate to shoot, which we saw Christian Pulisic do this weekend.
Exactly. I want to talk about that assist then.
Sure.
Because the implication in the question seems to suggest that maybe things haven't gone well for Pulisic. I think things are going great for Christian Pulisic. 20-year-old American playing for a big Premier League team. He's already got himself. He got the assist this this weekend with the took a couple of touches and played Mason Mount through. I think that's a great contribution. He had the pass before the pass for the Abraham goal that we talked about with the Aspilicueta overlap.
He made a lot of really good off the ball runs. He had the one where Kovacic pulls in 3 defenders and then plays him in diagonally.
Yeah,
and I think that his shot is either goes just wide or is blocked out for a corner.
Yeah,
but is heavily
nice little
involved.
1-2s as well. Yeah, I think he's doing great.
I think I said this to you at lunch. Again, we're just going to keep referencing our conversation from lunch.
We should have recorded lunch.
We probably should have. I feel like right now, at least, I feel Pulisic at Chelsea right now reminds me of like when, after he had kind of had the breakthrough at Dortmund, where he was a more regular starter, we saw him a lot more frequently, but we didn't see him scoring goals. We didn't really see him getting assists.
He wasn't Sancho.
And so, exactly. And we had, but even before, but just to clarify, like before Jadon Sancho was even there. And so I feel like it was those sort of games where he played all the time, but we didn't see the statistical impact. And so we had those concerns about, like, is he doing enough? Is he going to still be in the squad? But then the reality is he started a bunch of games because he was doing exactly what was asked of him. And I feel like this Chelsea team is kind of similar, that he's not necessarily the one that they're looking to score all the goals and set up all the goals. They're asking him to do a lot of other work and a lot of off-the-ball running and a lot of on-the-ball running. And that seems to be where he's being utilized, and I think thus far has been utilized effectively.
And I think we're definitely a little too obsessed with like overanalyzing his performances because we all want to see it go well.
Yes, we are. Not the one of us who selected 3 questions in a row about Christian Pulisic.
I wanted to talk about it.
Exactly.
But the thing I do want to say is, from a neutral perspective looking in on Chelsea, the story this season is the youth is happening, right? The guys that have been on loan forever, Tammy Abraham and Mason Mount, are starting and scoring and contributing. And Pulisic's the story if you're American, because that's what we're focused on. But the story if you're a Chelsea fan, I think, is Abraham and Mount.
Can I throw out an idea there? Because I don't disagree with anything you said, but I do wonder about that for a moment, because you've got these players, Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, young English players, and I think
Adoy to come back as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do wonder if there's like an element with the British press of like, this really overhyped American who cost a bunch of money, like, it's probably easier to write negative stuff about him. Like, I do think
that hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet, but like in terms of the coverage of Pulisic, I feel like I see less of it than I would have expected. And I think less than he got in the Bundesliga, as an example, when he was kind of doing the same stuff. And I think because the English press love writing about English players, positive or negative.
And that's what I'm kind of arguing, is the spotlight at Chelsea is on those young English players. I think that might be to Pulisic's advantage, though, because it lets him have his first 10, 15 games while everybody's talking about something else.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's probably true. Yeah, and then even when those 10, 15 games fall off and maybe he isn't performing, like if that happens, it's still then... Well, but they've got the embargo and they've got Frank Lampard and Sarri left, and they're still trying to figure it out. So I think, again, with all that said, it goes back to he's probably in a better situation at Chelsea than Manchester United. And for me, as a Man United fan, as much as I would like to see Christian Pulisic, I also don't want to be responsible for him not playing well and things falling off for him. I'm much happier for Chelsea to handle that responsibility.
I've got a final Pulisic tip for any watchers.
Yes.
He does look. Do you think he looks a bit like Mason Mount? They're like similar height and build, same haircut. Pulisic's wearing blue cleats. Blue boots. That's how you spot Christian Pulisic, because they both positionally interchange a little bit as well, right? They wander around a bit. Yeah. Look for the blue boots. That's how you know it's Pulisic every time.
And I really do love, and don't at all completely hate and despise, the new tendency of jersey manufacturers to make the numbers completely unreadable.
Right.
What is this trend? I hate it so much. And I don't say hate regularly. I actively try not to use that word. But I really hate modern jerseys because you know what I'm talking about? Like, I don't know what that is, that even when they're like blue and white, it is still like I cannot read that number. And I don't think it's just my old age. It seems to be a weird, like, we're using numbers that all look the same. 1s and 7s are interchangeable now. I don't like it.
We're talking about Adidas here, right?
Yes, exactly.
We are. All right. So plenty more questions.
I'm also still bitter from the Portland-Seattle game where they both wore green.
Yes, right. Okay. Yeah. I want to we'll talk about that game later, right? But I do want to mention the defining thing for jerseys is one has to be dark and one has to be light, right?
Yes.
It's not just about colours. But I think they've gone really too far in that game with interpreting that, where it's like a light green and a dark green.
On a green field with green stands?
Yes. Yeah. I really had trouble watching that game.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I really enjoyed John Champion just being legitimately annoyed by it.
Oh, did he talk about it?
In the very beginning, he was like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but that's what's happened.
Plenty more questions to come. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor, It's Manscaped.
All right.
Support for the Total Sock Show comes from Manscaped, the #1 men's below-the-belt grooming company. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. And they don't mean that you should get your parents' diamonds and use it on that.
Yeah, don't do that. And if you're Christian Pulisic and you're trying to bulk up, maybe you don't want to use Manscaped because that could be, we don't know what's going on. Maybe he uses some Manscaped product and suddenly he loses several pounds. That would be worrying, and you don't want that to happen.
I think he should stay aerodynamic.
Okay.
I think speed is what he's got going for him. He should double down on speed.
See, okay, there we go. So maybe he should be using the Manscaped products. Similar to swimmers, when they shave off every hair on their body so there's no drag at all. That's what Christian Pulisic
Michael
needs.
Phelps it.
Manscaped for the whole body. But you don't want to wax it. We saw what happened to Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to be in pain.
Instead, Manscaped can cover everything, but they help you prevent any sort of accident.
Yep.
Because, for example, the Lawnmower 2.0, their trimmer, has skin-safe technology, so it will not nick or snag anywhere. You don't have to worry about cuts or bruises if you're using it very wrongly. Yeah.
Manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past, thanks to the lawn mower.
This is very true. And they also offer a wider variety of products, even though on the Top Drawer Soccer Show last week, Travis Clark tried to say that it was already fall. Incorrect. It is still very much summer. And so they have...
It's fake fall here in Richmond.
It is fake fall.
One of our 12 seasons.
Yes. Fake fall followed by actual summer followed by actual fall.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But here, so that means it is still very hot. It is still very humid. So they have things like the Crop Preserver, which is an anti-chafing deodorant and moisturizer for your nether regions. So it's essentially putting deodorant on a very smelly part of your body, which you already do with your armpits, so why not do it downstairs?
You can get 20% off plus free shipping when you use the code TSS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code TSS.
Always use the right tools for the job. Manscaped will allow you to do so. Daryl, I don't know if you listened to Top Drawer, but it really did begin last week with Travis saying, fall is here. I was like, what? It's mid-August, Travis. That is not what I think of fall starting.
I'm glad you fact-checked him.
Yes, I did. Of course I did. And I'm now going to move us right along away from fact-checking Travis Clark and into talking Arsenal-Liverpool. Frank Riley asks, did Arsenal come out with the right tactical game plan against Liverpool? And I'm sort of going to fold in the next question as well, and then we can kind of approach them whatever we want to if that works for you.
Yeah.
Lucas Newton asks, why would a team constantly play short against a known pressing team like what happened with Arsenal against Liverpool? Is that not an obvious recipe for disaster?
Okay, so they did not come out with the right tactical game plan because they lost 3-1.
Right.
But I could see what Unai Emery was thinking.
Okay.
I could see why on paper, in theory, in training, I was going to say in practice. In training, it worked. In practice, on match day, it did not. So the way I look at it...
Is it because in training they were playing against their reserve team who aren't quite as good as Liverpool? Okay.
And their fullbacks crossing weren't
I
quite
do
as
love
good.
when teams do that. Like, it worked in training, we played a reserve team. It's ooh. Like, hold on there. What was that? Was that a very important word you threw in there real fast?
So here's the tactical game plan as I saw it from Unai Emery. 4-3-1-2 was the shape. They kept calling it a diamond on the broadcast. It was not a diamond.
I knew you were going to get annoyed by that.
But there's a difference, right? With a diamond, there's a base player and there's two guys. The shuttlers go up and down. Arsenal's players didn't go up and down. They had a back four and then they had a midfield three right in front of them, right? It was Xhaka, Guendouzi and Willock played as a three in front of the defence. Gave up the wings, essentially, made sure that Liverpool could not get those short balls into Mane, Salah, Firmino, and get those nice little Liverpool 1-2s going. They absolutely cut that stuff out and let Liverpool have the wings and cross from deep. Right? So Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold crossed from deep, and it worked for 41 minutes.
I agree with you that was the idea, but I think where the execution fell apart was in the from deep aspect of this. Because I think you're absolutely right that the idea was, that's fine, you guys can cross, but we're going to get somebody over to prevent, say, Andy Robertson from getting all the way down the field, so he ends up having to cross from 30 yards from the end line. And I think they did do that for quite some time, but as soon as that started to break down, and once Liverpool were able to kind of pull that midfield three over a little bit,
they kind of inched forward, didn't they?
But also inched over. And I think then it was much harder for, if you're the kind of right central midfielder in that midfield three, and everybody slides over to the left because the ball is on Liverpool's right, basically. Sorry, that's a little confusing, but you get what I'm getting at. if you overcommit by 5 yards and that ball gets switched, now you've overcommitted by 5 yards. That's another 5 yards you have to frantically go close down.
Yeah. There was a lot of running sideways from that midfield three.
And so I think as soon as you start getting pulled out a little bit and all that space opens up, then Andy Robertson is in a position where he can drive forward with the ball, or Trent Alexander-Arnold the same. And now even if they're not crossing, they're still getting possession way further up the field than I think Arsenal had anticipated or wanted.
I agree. I would still defend it a little bit wherever the crosses come in from, even out wide. I think it's Liverpool's least effective attacking route is putting crosses into Firmino, Salah, Mane, because none of them are like massive aerial threats. And then I think the idea going forward was to have Aubameyang and Pepe with Ceballos as the connective tissue, and essentially we're going to hit Liverpool on the break, right? And I could see why that's a good idea. Again, maybe against the reserves, but it's not a good idea when you've got Virgil van Dijk and Joel Matip covering the ground behind.
Yeah, they're more than capable of doing that. Can I say one thing to your crossing point though? Because I think this is the other element that I wanted to get to with the Andy Robertson getting forward, Trent Alexander-Arnold getting forward. Is you're right. It's probably the least effective they are when they're just putting crosses in for someone to maybe get on the end of head in.
Because I'm thinking Luis, Socrates can head it away, Leno can catch it, and that did happen for a big chunk of the game.
But where I think Arsenal are susceptible and Liverpool are dangerous when it comes to crossing is if they're able to bypass that midfield three a little bit, and now everyone's having to scramble back, and Robertson or Alexander-Arnold crosses earlier than expected, as opposed to get to the end line, cross it to the penalty spot, see if somebody can head it, but sort of drive at them and then play that ball in when everybody's trying to get backwards. Then you're not set to sort of be able to clear it, be able to defend it. You're sort of scrambling and trying to make a play at the same time and also track your runner. That's where I think holes open up a bit more.
And then the other thing is, if they win a corner off some of those crosses, like they did, then they can send the big guys forward. You've got Van Dijk, you've got Matip, and they're genuinely a threat from set pieces in a way that you don't think of with a lot of other centre-backs. I want to say their goal-scoring record for centre-backs is probably the best around.
I mean, they've scored at least 2 goals this season, if not 3.
There we go. And even this goal, Van Dijk makes an initial run, gets tangled up with Luis. I think even appeals for a penalty, opens a bit of space for Matip to leap, head the ball 1-0. And then Arsenal didn't change. They kept doing the same thing.
Which leads me to ask you this, Daryl. I know you do not like when teams go up, sending both their center backs forward. If Liverpool are 1-0 up, they get another corner. You don't love if they send both center backs forward.
Liverpool may be a little different.
That's my question.
Yeah, I think the success rate of Matip and Van Dijk is so high that it's probably worth it.
And I guess I think of Jurgen Klopp as being so detail oriented and so organized. Guardiola probably the same.
Yeah.
That I also expect them to have their best transitional defenders staying deep in anticipation of a potential counter.
Yeah. So I'm perfectly fine with Van Dijk and Matip going forward, even at 1-0, 2-0, 3-0.
Yes.
Because they're so dangerous.
And I think, and so with all that said, I think I agree with you that where Arsenal set up, how that was supposed to benefit them in their attack. But I do think, the idea of okay, and then we can get on the break, except that they've got 2 very good center backs. I think that's an astute point. But I also think
not just good centre backs, but centre backs with pace and capable of covering behind. So Aubameyang and Pepe can't really hit you on the counter. Maybe they'll do it once. Didn't Pepe have one good breakaway, but didn't score? Right. And that's, if you're limited to just that one chance, then
unless you're Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
But I think the other issue that came into play here is Lucas's question related to Lucas's question. That's why I kind of put them in together. Is that I also think Arsenal were really focused on all goal kicks short. We're going to move the ball. We're going to move the ball, and I don't know if they just backed themselves to be able to evade Liverpool's press, or if they were trying to use that press to their advantage and pull Liverpool out of position.
I think it's that. I think they were trying to pull Liverpool forward with the short passing, and then eventually, bang, we hit Pepe, we hit Aubameyang, and we sort of pull them in, draw them up, create space for us to exploit, and then we get in behind them. But it didn't quite work, right? Because what mostly happened is Liverpool put Arsenal in a bad situation. Do you remember the one moment when Ceballos ends up essentially crossing the ball for Liverpool?
Yeah, that was shocking. And I think right there is where I take Lucas's point of I don't know why they persisted with that. And I guess the idea,
I can see why they started with it, what the idea was, but when it wasn't working, persisted is the right word, right? They did, unlike Elizabeth Warren, they should not have persisted.
They should not have. And maybe it's a that's well done. Maybe that's a live by the sword, die by the sword thing. I'm no, we want this to be our approach no matter what. Yeah. And you can and maybe there's that idea that you can only get better at it by trying to do it against the best team to deal with that approach. Yeah. And if you can hold your own against Liverpool, even if you end up losing.
If you can make it here, you'll make it anywhere.
Kinda, yeah. And so maybe that's why they persisted, is because okay, we're probably going to lose to Liverpool doing this, but we want to get a little bit more comfortable, and they are going to be the best at making us uncomfortable. So the next time we play a team who aren't as good at pressing but still like to press, maybe we handle it a little bit more.
Maybe
that's the only thing I can see.
That result, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I also look at this as how far Liverpool have risen is that Arsenal have to have this whole very defensive game plan.
It's weird, right?
To face Liverpool. It used to be that Liverpool and Arsenal would just sort of set out their stalls and just go at each other and we'd see what happens. Stall setters, yeah. But instead now it's Arsenal play Liverpool and have a 4-3-1-2 defend and hope we get something on the counter.
Which
they're
is,
Crystal Palace, essentially.
They are.
In that sense.
But that is also a testament to... I may be incorrect because I forget this. Who is the longest tenured Premier League coach right now? But it's either Eddie Howe or Jurgen Klopp, I think. And there's also that element as well. That, like, I think I said this on the show with Ryan, that you don't bring in any major signings because you back your squad to be very, very strong. You bring in capable deputies like Adrian. Yeah, and so I think they're all very, very, very well attuned to what they're doing, and I think everybody kind of has bought into the system. I think there's probably Unai Emery is still trying to figure some things out, still trying to figure out where some pieces fit in, and so I think with that in mind, he is definitely going to be the one who has to adjust versus Liverpool doing what they want.
And I've just realised that from an Arsenal perspective, one of the reasons maybe why we can't, remember in the pre-season preview and even when we talked, it's really hard to put your finger on exactly what Emery's doing at Arsenal and what their style is and what they're like. Klopp, you can say it with Liverpool. Guardiola, you can say it with Man City. Even Solskjaer, you can say it with Manchester United, right? Whether it is working or not, you can say. Well, but you can say what the style is, right? Maybe it's because Unai Emery is like for some reason more reactive than we realise. Like instead of having this is how Arsenal plays, I dare you to play against us. It's like, all right, lads, we're playing Liverpool this week. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a bit more of a reactive style.
Which would make sense, right? Because wasn't he hired to be a coach and not a manager? In that he's not hired to change the whole philosophy of the club and do his own recruitment. It's more like, here are the players you have.
But there's no philosophy. The philosophy is like we just set up to play whoever we're playing.
Yeah. Which I kind of like. I like the anarchy of we're doing this week and we're doing something else next week.
Well, it'd be better if it worked.
Yes. I mean, I say that as a non-Arsenal fan that I enjoy that. Arsenal fans might fundamentally disagree.
You ready to move on?
I am, but I wanted to ask you one more question first.
Yeah.
So we could move on, but I guess no, I'm not ready. Because I was wondering, did this weekend change your feelings? Not that you were a big advocate of David Luiz, but it's one that we have talked about a little bit about how
it was a rough game, right?
It was, and it felt like the sort of old school David Luiz has a brain fart, makes a dumb mistake, pulls Mohamed Salah back, concedes that penalty, but then
gets burned on the third goal. He gets burned by Salah. Yeah,
but the thing I was arguing with Ryan is that I almost think the getting burnt is because of the penalty, because he gets that yellow when he concedes the penalty. So then he knows if he knocks Mohamed Salah at all, it's going to be another yellow, it's going to be a red. And so I think he limits his ability to make any sort of play. And I guess my question for you then is, with everything we've just said with Unai Emery and how they're kind of trying this and trying that and moving stuff around and he's trying different approaches, do you think this was a bad game for David Luiz that should be disconcerting to Arsenal fans, or is there a chance that it was just more so they were trying something else and he was being asked to do something that he's not quite ready to do yet?
I mean, I've seen Mustafi do worse.
I feel like that's always your defense.
But it is.
Mustafi is worse.
They've upgraded with David Luiz. Yeah, he had a bad game. He really did have a bad game because he has two really high-profile incidents where he's essentially at fault for goals. But I think in the long run, they're going to be better off with David Luiz.
Okay.
Yeah?
We'll see.
Because we saw him play for Chelsea last season. He was fine. He was a really good Premier League defender. He can't suddenly get bad just because he's wearing an Arsenal jersey.
We're going to finish this season. Then we're going to find the multiverse function. We're going to go to the multiverse where Mustafi is still there. Yeah. And we're going to see how they did this season.
All right. Can we also find the non-Brexit multiverse?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I want to go there.
That'd be fine. I would have no problem with that.
Are you ready to move to North America?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Why not?
All right.
I mean, I've been here for a while, but yeah.
We actually have 2 or 3 MLS questions. I want to talk a little NWSL first.
Sure.
Because you made a surprise visit to Audi Field to see the Washington Spirit this past weekend.
Was it a surprise visit because it was me appearing or because they were playing at Audi Field?
Well, because to me at least, I didn't know you were going and then you suddenly were.
Well, I wanted to go see the Spirit play the Chicago Red Stars on August 10th, but that was when my wife and I were coming back from the beach, and it occurred to me that a week at the beach with family and in-laws and different people coming and going, maybe at the end of that, driving out of our way to go see a women's soccer game 40 minutes north of D.C. would not be the best idea. And
40 minutes? Oh, because they're at Maryland Soccer Complex.
Yeah, it might just be via public transport, but I'm sticking with that one. So I wanted to see them play. I wanted to kind of go support the Spirit in whatever way I could, so this felt like an opportunity, plus my friend was officiating, so it made sense to go for that reason as well. So we were excited to go up there and watch that game, and it was a really good game. We got to see some World Cup winners and some World Cup players. Marta was there. She is very good.
So they played Orlando.
Yes.
Taylor's take, Marta is very good.
Yes, but also...
Why specifically then? Because we knew this before,
Sure.
but it seems like you've, I don't know, discovered it in a new way, maybe?
It's...
Seeing her live is different?
You and I were talking, this is going to be... I'm not saying Marta is Zlatan, although kind of. But like we were talking recently about the Zlatan, a 21st Century Portrait, and how my wife and I were watching that. And it's like really interesting to watch because he very... in my opinion, very clearly is not trying to involve himself in the game in the first 10 minutes because he's just trying to see what everyone's doing.
Like taking the lay of the land,
and then slowly gets more and more involved to the point where like everything goes through him in the second half.
I see.
And it was sort of like that Marta kept popping up. Orlando kept adjusting to where if Marta was on the left, then she played on the left. When she moved to the right, then she was on the right now, and everybody else.
Everything went through Marta.
Yeah, but in the second half especially, she was on the ball constantly and just kept causing massive problems for the Spirit. But then there's other little moments where it was like, oh right, she's been around the block, that like I forget who the Spirit defender was, or maybe it was their right midfielder, but she's trying to shepherd the ball out of bounds for like a Spirit goal kick, and Marta just shoulder bodied her, like sent her flying 5 yards, and the ref was just like, yeah, no, that was shoulder, that's allowed. And then Marta,
this is what we want for Pulisic, right?
Yeah,
shoulders,
exactly.
He needs some shoulders first.
Yeah, but then Marta like pulls the ball back before it rolls out of the end line, and then dribbles down and gets a shot off, and I think forces a corner. But it was just that moment of like, oh, she's crafty, and also all over the place, and also physical, and also very dangerous. It was very cool to get to watch her in person.
Was there anyone that you hadn't sort of known about before? Because, we're somewhat novice with the NWSL, right? Is there anyone that stood out to you that you didn't know about before? Because weren't a lot of the women's national team players, they've got the victory tour, there's a game against Portugal, right? So they weren't involved. Rose Lavelle didn't play, for example, right?
No, she did not, nor did Mallory Pugh. I liked Jordan DiBiase and Eddie Sullivan were both very, very, very good for Washington.
Andy Sullivan I've seen before, yeah.
They kind of locked it down in the midfield for the Spirit. They kept it moving, and there was a lot more how do I say this, like probing passing than I was kind of expecting, especially with no Rose Lavelle, with no Mallory Pugh, that it was like well-struck passes that were going like 20 yards into feet, and then there was like a turn and then playing it forward and then dropping it back, but then playing it forward again. It was like very good precision passing under pressure, and I felt like Andy Sullivan and Jordan DiBiase were very integral to that. I also was not familiar with Bledsoe, the Spirit goalkeeper. Right. She pulled off some massive saves. She's one who maybe I wouldn't mind if whoever the future women's coach is maybe calls her into camp.
I have heard a lot of NWSL experts and goalkeeper experts. When Justin Bryant was here, I think he was talking about Bledsoe. What's her name? Aubrey?
I think that's it. Yeah,
It's definitely Bledsoe, right? Yeah.
But she had one in the dying moments. Spirit ended up winning 2-1, but she pulled one off the line that she had no business saving. Like she really didn't. I was sure it was a goal. So were the Orlando players. They were all screaming that it crossed the line, and it definitely did not. And it did not because Bledsoe got down and like put a big hand to it, but then made the save, but also got the ball out of like the 6-yard box and away from danger. I see.
It's not just like a flat parry, but more like a get out of here, soccer ball.
Exactly. Get out of here, soccer ball.
So Audi Field is where the game was.
It was.
I think I read 19,000, which is not far short of full capacity, right? It's at 24 at Audi Field.
Yeah. I think they announced it as a sellout, which I'm assuming means that it was basically for the seats that they opened up. They sold all of those seats.
So how's the atmosphere?
Awesome. Yeah. It really was. It was awesome in the sense that like it was clearly a lot of people who are just excited to watch soccer who maybe don't want to make the trip to the Maryland Soccerplex.
Right.
And so, like, my wife was with me, kept asking me, like, wait, are there Orlando fans here? Because, like, when Marta would beat somebody and get a shot off that was barely saved, the whole crowd would ooh as though it was a Spirit player doing it.
So it's more like Marta appreciation.
I mean, I think soccer appreciation.
I see.
And, but the highlight of it for me was that all the players, or at least the Spirit players, a lot of the Orlando players actually stuck around to sign autographs afterward. Not for me because I was a member of the press, and press don't get autographs. Otherwise, we're not professional. But we walked past.
That is true, by the way. I agree with that.
It is true. It is true. I just meant more so that's what legitimate press should do. Yeah. I don't know if I count myself as legitimate press. But we walked past father and mother with their young daughter who, as we walked by, like literally said, like my face hurts because I've been smiling so much because she got to like meet all these players and got to see a game, and so it was cool to see, and it was also a good reminder. We've talked about this before, but just like when my wife was playing soccer, that didn't exist. It was like. You had...
That's why she didn't go pro, right?
That's the only reason why. She went piano instead.
Yeah, no.
As everyone does. But it was a cool reminder. Like, you had the 99 World Cup, and that was great. And then there wasn't a lot of like things after that for young girls to get to go enjoy an experience. And if you looked around, it was a lot of people wearing the same colors because it was an orange team, there was a yellow team, there was a green team. It was clearly teams had come to watch these.
Right, yeah.
And it was just a good reminder that like,
teams
we
in
want
DC,
that league
right?
to survive.
Teams in DC that maybe don't want to make the trip to the Maryland
DMV,
soccer
man. The DMV.
complex. The DMV?
DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Oh, okay. I see.
I think Delaware sometimes gets thrown in there. But whatever.
Is it the district?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Maryland, Virginia. All right.
Can I give one? I want to say kudos. There were a few reporters in the press box, so I apologize for not naming everybody. But Kim McCauley, Jason Anderson were seated next to each other when we got there, and clearly were used to being like one of very few people covering the Washington Spirit. So I just wanted to shout them out for doing an excellent job of covering both the Spirit and women's soccer in general.
They were there when 19,000 people weren't there.
Yes, correct. Very, very true.
We have another question about Audi Field, but do you want to do today's sponsor
Let's
before we
do
so?
it.
All right. Today's show is sponsored by...
Go watch women's soccer, by the way.
Agreed. Also, think about getting life insurance.
Okay.
Those things aren't related.
All right, I'll leave right now.
But today's show is sponsored by Policy Genius.
But my fear, Daryl, is like I want life insurance, but it's such an elaborate and arduous task, and I would have to leave here and go do a bunch of research. I assume I would have to go to a library and get books about how to get life insurance, and then it would take... I probably need a week off, is I guess what I'm saying.
Getting life insurance doesn't need to be difficult or expensive.
The devil, you say.
And I got good news for you.
What's
September's
that?
coming, and September is National Life Insurance Awareness Month, so it's time for you to get aware, Taylor. Most people aren't aware of that. In fact, most people aren't aware they need life insurance at all. That's why 40% of Americans don't have life insurance.
I will go on the record and say that I am one of that 40%.
All right.
And I probably should rectify that.
I got good news for you.
What's
right now,
that?
prices are the lowest they've been in 20 years, and Policy Genius has made it easier than ever to get covered.
That's right. Policy Genius is the easy way to shop for life insurance online. In minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurers to find your best price. Once you apply, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork and the red tape. This does make me feel like I probably should go for Policy Genius, especially my wife is working now. Maybe there will be like the pitter-patter of tiny feet like years from now. No time soon. But it is worth remembering that. And I want my dogs to have money if something happens. So
your feet going to shrink, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. and then I want my dogs to be able to retire well. So, if something happens to me, then they can.
So you're going to have the pitter-patter of tiny two-legged feet.
Exactly.
Right now you've got 4 legs.
Maybe one day. No, nothing soon. That is not me announcing anything. Don't you worry.
Well, Policy Genius doesn't just make life insurance easy. They can also help you find the right home insurance, auto insurance, and disability insurance. For example, if your feet shrink.
If your feet shrink, that qualifies as disability insurance, you think?
If it makes it hard to get around.
I guess, what is it, your feet, your ears, and your nose continue to grow throughout your life? Yeah. So if they're shrinking, then
I've seen some
something's
big-eared
wrong.
old men.
Yeah, right. It's a
big
concern.
lobes, big floppy lobes. Yeah.
And the hair fills in.
Yeah.
In the ears, not the head.
May we all live long enough to have big floppy lobes.
I like that. If you need life insurance but you just haven't gotten around to it, that would be me. National Life Insurance Awareness Month is as good a time as any to get started.
Or late August.
Yeah, or that. So go to policygenius.com, get quotes, and apply in minutes. You can do the whole thing on your phone right now.
Policy Genius, the easy way to compare and buy life insurance.
Thank you very much to Policy Genius for sponsoring today's episode and for reminding me that I should have life insurance. Maybe somebody will be needing career insurance is how I'm going to transition to Josh Hicks's question. Josh asks,
Social Security.
Will DC United fire Ben Olsen? Social Security, whatever. That's probably not going to exist in like 10 years. If so, who will they hire instead?
So, will DC United fire Ben Olsen? Historically, no.
Nope.
But we're in a new era at DC, right? We've got Audi Field.
That's what they would have us believe.
Wayne Rooney has come and is about to go, but I think will be replaced.
Did you know they won for
expensive.
MLS Cup still?
I did.
You did know that,
but not recently.
Oh, really?
But not recently.
But they are tradition, though.
I'll tell you what they've done recently.
Yeah.
They lost 5-1 to Philadelphia.
Yes, they did.
And before that, when we went to... Who did we see them play? We saw them play the Red Bulls.
They lost 3 games in 8 days.
They lost
at
to the
time
Red
of
Bulls
recording.
in like the first part of rivalry week. I feel like they squeezed 2 rivalry weeks into 1 week.
Yeah.
For DC United, they slipped outside the playoff zone, right? So that to me,
they're still in. I think they're only 1 point ahead now, or maybe with the loss they've now fallen out.
I think Red Bulls jumped them
Yikes.
when they won that game
right.
last midweek when we were up there. So I think if they made a strong start to the season and then slip out of the playoffs, and then Wayne Rooney is gone, I wouldn't be massively. I don't know. I have no inside information, but I wouldn't be massively surprised if the people at DC are sort of like, all right, it's time for a change.
So this would be, I think, with a lot of other organizations, this would probably have already happened. With this run of form, with Wayne Rooney, I think somebody on the DC Reddit said he has 1.75 feet out the door, which is more or less accurate. There's been a Lucho Acosta drama. Is his mind elsewhere, or is he kind of feuding with Ben Olsen? Even he, at one point, wasn't entirely sure why he wasn't playing. It does feel like a team that is very listless. Their performances have shown that, and maybe
it all coincides with Rooney's trip to Derby.
Yes, that doesn't help. And so I say all that to say that I think under other circumstances with another team, they probably part ways, yes, and bring in somebody else or appoint somebody who's already either familiar with the club or has been there. They bring in an assistant, they bring in the USL coach, and then they kind of see out the season. I don't think that happens here because I don't think they have that structure in place.
Yeah.
But I also think because Ben Olsen is such a legend both as a player and has been there for so long as a coach, that I think to part ways with him does actually hurt that idea of tradition, family, whatever, what have you. I think that kind of goes against that. So I think for that reason as well, they don't part with him this season at least.
But maybe end of the season if it's gone badly. Because I look at it as when they moved to Audi Field last year, obviously there's that bad start to the season. They were away a lot. Then the new stadium comes, Rooney arrives, there's the Senor Wayne business, and suddenly DC are really great for the second half of the season. So that was great, but it was for real this year, right? Rooney's already there, Costa's already there, the stadium's already there. Olsen has the full season with all the weapons at his disposal, and they're slipping outside the playoffs. Yeah. So I think maybe it might be the time.
It might be the time, but then it becomes incumbent upon the ownership to make that decision and then spend some money to bring in a replacement and to make things happen. That's not a thing that they have always been inclined to do.
But now it's the thing, right? It's the thing in MLS. I think the correct thing to really hire a big-name coach, a coach with big ideas, whether it was Tata Martino at Atlanta or Almeida at San Jose. It's become kind of the thing, and it's become, I think, the path to having a really good team is to hire a really good coach. We should have known this before.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything you've said. I guess what I'm saying is I don't have faith in DC United to do that.
Oh, really?
I take your point. They built the stadium. Lovely. Now there's a little bit more pressure, but I feel like they sort of not enjoyed not having Audi Field, but they were sort of we're transitioning. We're going to figure some stuff out. I think that's why they kept Ben Olsen for so long, because I think there were times when, he was the only one that could handle it and could handle the situation. But
he's a magnificent ambassador for the club, right? Yeah. He's a great representative in the community and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, but for it was a painful realization for me because I grew up with DC United, Barra Brava. There's all this, the most intense atmosphere, and then you start seeing more games, and you're like, oh no, that's. A lot of teams have a pretty intimidating atmosphere, and I think they might have struggled to get a top-tier coach before they went to Audi Field. I take your point that now they have, and they spent the money on Rooney and Acosta. It seems like they're starting to embrace that idea, but I guess I still have trouble believing that they actually are and are actually inclined to make that type of hire. My feeling is that if they were to get rid of Ben Olsen, they look at somebody like a Tab Ramos. That's kind of where my thinking is it's not a big international hire that's going to make a splash. I think it's a kind of big, no disrespect to Tab Ramos, but he's not a proven coach at international level. So it's more of a
senior level.
Or at senior level. So it's more of a kind of noteworthy hire that is probably also somewhat cost effective.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he'd get to work with Chris Durkin again.
There you go. That's the dream.
Next question. No? More on this?
No.
I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I think I got a little frustrated last night reading about DC United because I do think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done there, and I don't necessarily put it all on Ben Olsen because, the thing I was thinking about is...
it's years of rot, essentially. I mean, they've been tried to be patched up in the last couple of years.
The thing I was thinking about is, I'm not an every game DC United fan, so I'm sure there will be people who are screaming at their headphones for this. But I was really struggling to think of the last time they brought through a player who sort of really rose to that next level. And it was they're I was thinking maybe it's Andy Nahar, because you think about a player like Russell Canals, who we're both really excited about, or even Chris Durkin, that they kind of have this ceiling where now I see a lot of DC fans being Russell Canals is never going to be good enough. He can't handle it at this league. And there was a time when we thought,
You say that about Canals?
I mean, or just are frustrated by his lack of passing ability or his lack of technical precision. Huh. And I think that maybe that's who he is, but maybe also there's a lack of depth and coaching and overall advising to help them reach that next level.
Yeah.
And so those are feelings that I have looking at DC right now, that it went from they're winning every game while playing at home for the entire second half of the season and things are great, and now suddenly you remove Rooney from that equation and things look slightly less rosy, except for his ruddy cheeks. Well, those look very rosy.
Well, maybe we'll find out in January.
Yes. End of DC rant.
End of DC rant. Okay, Royce Alvarez on Twitter, I believe, is also known as Royce the Voice. Did Jordan Morris play himself onto the September US men's national team roster, which we think will be named on Wednesday, with his performance versus Portland? If you didn't see this, Seattle won 2-1. Jordan Morris had both assists. He played on the left wing for Seattle.
I haven't actually looked at the box score. Did he get credit for the first one? Because he plays it in and then kind of it pings all over the place.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, he creates it, so I see why you would give him that.
I'm giving him the assist. He may only have one assist. I bet. Cool. I bet he only has. I bet he officially only has one, but I'm giving him 2.
That really wasn't me trying to be pedantic. It was more like, did he? Because I wanted to figure that out, and then I forgot.
No, you're right. Yeah, pinballed around.
All right. To answer Royce's question, I'm not for me, no. But I think I think there's a decent chance he was already on that roster.
Me too.
Even before this performance. So yes, but probably because he was already in consideration.
Okay, so maybe a different way of asking this so that we get to talk about Jordan Morris. Were we impressed with what we saw from Jordan Morris? Did Jordan Morris play his way onto our US men's national team roster? Because when we picked it, remember we did our roster show last Wednesday. I'd encourage people to go back and listen to it. I think it was a good show. Our wingers were Christian Pulisic, Paul Arriola, Tim Weah, and I believe Fabian Johnson.
Yep. It's the Fabian Johnson one that is the only reason why I'm leading maybe is just because it's not as though we have like lights out wingers and then maybe Jordan Morris. There's a lot of room for development and maybe other players coming in. I struggle with that a little bit because look, the actual assist he gets is by beating Zarek Valentin again, and then crossing with his left foot to pick out Raul Ruiz, I believe it was, who insteps.
It's a really nice, perfect cutback, right, with a bit of disguise on it, and no one else saw it come in, and Jordan Morris definitely knew exactly what he was doing with his left foot.
Yeah, so that's great. The first assist that we're crediting him with, it's it encompasses my frustration with Jordan Morris because he's able to get by Zarek Valentin, more on that in a moment, then he kind of plays the ball into the box and something happens. And so you could spin that narrative of no, he beats a guy, he gets to the end line, he causes confusion, he plays it in, the goal comes from that. That's true. But you could also explain that exact same thing as he basically kind of runs into Zarek Valentin, who makes a very weak challenge.
He kind of cuts, right? He fakes like he's going away from goal with his right foot. Cuts with his right foot and goes to the end line, but also kind of runs into Valentin, but it bounces off of Valentin and Morris is away.
But a better defender stops that ball dead.
Because he had a bite at it.
Yeah, because he dribbles in. I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but the best way I can explain it is he dribbles into a defender and then manages to keep the ball.
Van Dijk takes that away.
Yeah, exactly. And not even Van Dijk, but an international caliber defender, I think, takes that ball away.
Okay.
And so then he's able to get by, and then he plays this ball in, and it is a kind of dangerous ball, but it is also the case that it pings around a little bit.
But doesn't he find feet with the first pass, and then it pings around? I think his actual square ball I think it's Rui Diaz, and it's eventually rolled down that finishes it. I don't think the actual ball is that bad.
Okay. Yeah. But it wasn't even that it was that bad to me. It's just that, yes, it is technically a good play, but it is simultaneously, in my mind, not a good play because it relies on a defender not making a good play on the ball. And if a defender does, then that entire play doesn't happen. And so that's the kind of confounding thing about Jordan Morris is for every time he does something well, there are still those moments of but is that good enough?
Yeah,
or is that the right
one? We've had those moments when he's done stuff for the US national team.
Yep.
But it was with the outside of his right foot and it looked kind of awkward and he kind of got away with it.
Yeah.
So, there is maybe that element to it. But I will say, on that outside of the foot note, I was really impressed with Morris going down the left and using his left foot.
Yep.
Not just in these 2 assists, but I watched some of the clips. He definitely is more comfortable using his left foot than he has been in the past. So it's almost like a criticism of him that I want to half withdraw or back away from because he actually has improved his game and become more comfortable with both feet.
Yeah, which is all you can ask for.
Yeah,
but I
improvement, right?
Yeah, but I would still say one game for me does not a season make.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to watch that game against Portland and think yep, that's what the United States needs. I think he probably still gets called in or at least merits.
He's at the very least on the fringes.
Yeah,
right?
And merits consideration or will get consideration down the road. And I guess I understand that a little bit more, but I still, if that's what we're looking to be the player that solves problems for the United States out wide, I'm worried.
Okay, you watch someone like Tim Weah, and I can see him, the way he connects and the way he plays 1-2s, it just seems like there's a bit more there than there is with Jordan Morris using his cut and pace to get to the end line and fire a ball.
Yeah.
What about the idea of his position as well? Because he was he was introduced to us as a centre forward, right? He was a striker at Stamford. He was a striker when he played for Seattle. He was a striker for the national team in the early days. He seemed to become, because Seattle played this like 4-2-3-1, and Raul Ruiz Diaz has that central striker spot.
Yeah, he good.
He's become like a left winger or a right winger, and then Morris has then played those positions for the national team, right? And not always look fully comfortable doing it. So I wonder if he's a man who's playing his second favourite position and it's good enough in MLS, but maybe it's not quite good enough at national team level.
Which I would actually be more okay with him being called in as a striker.
Really?
I think if we saw his name on that roster, but it was like competing at center forward. That's not really a notation they make. I would.
No, but sometimes they list strikers, and it could be Altidore, Sargent, Morris.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah,
I would be okay with seeing him going back to a position that I am more familiar with him. I think he functions better. Again, I don't watch Seattle every single day. I'm sure Seattle fans will say, like, no, he's great out wide. But for me, the attributes that I think are his strongest would be well suited to him as a striker for the U.S. That's my feeling. I think he has the physicality to be able to handle some of that hold up play and the back to goal sort of play that's required. I think he has the pace and the physicality to be able to get past defenders. Like, again, not with
the shoulders for sure.
The skill that like maybe I would like to see. Again, going back to the Valentin point, but I think he has a couple different skill sets that I think would work as a central striker for the U.S. And also because that's another position where I don't think we have nearly as much depth as I would like. And I wouldn't mind seeing maybe he could do it there, and maybe he does like give us something to think about in terms of playing as a striker.
I'd like to see what his connective play is like, his coming deep and laying balls off kind of thing that Altidore does so well. I don't know what I think of Morris's sort of coming deep and connecting kind of play. I think of him more as a running in behind kind of striker.
All right. Do you have more to say about Jordan Morris? Because I have something
else
to say about Seattle.
I'm noodling here. I'm noodling.
That's fair. Well, while you noodle, I will throw in another one to say I will also add this, though, from watching this game. I do get why Seattle fans love Christian Roldan. And it hasn't necessarily changed my opinion because I don't think he is – I don't want to say good enough, but I don't think he fits well enough with what Greg Berhalter wants to do with that like central midfield. But Roldan played like kind of wide right for Seattle in this one. And,
is it Morris on the left, Roldan on the right?
And caused problems all over the place and looked sharp and looked very confident dribbling at defenses. I think that Jordan Morris' actual assist starts with Roldan on the right getting the ball, dribbling central and playing the ball to Ruiz Diaz, who plays it to Morris, who plays it back. But that's Roldan basically making a play happen. And I saw those moments where I was like, okay, I get it, Seattle. I get why you all like him.
I get it, Seattle.
And I don't have that question anymore.
You think Stephen Fry should be the goalkeeper as well?
100%. Of course. He should have been the whole time. How was he not? I don't think that.
He should have been the goalkeeper for Seattle.
Sure.
Put it that way.
Yeah, that's fine.
What if Roldan was called up as a winger for the national team instead of one of those central midfielders?
Okay, before people yell, here is a very kind of confusing answer, but I think if it were normal circumstances with a normal national team, I wouldn't be as upset about it. But I think what you and I want to see from this upcoming roster is some proven faces with some experimentation because we haven't really seen that yet from Greg Berhalter. Yeah. And that's the only reason why I say I don't really want that. Is because
it's one fewer place for like a Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah, or even like Tyler Boyd. I want to see him called back in and given. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing him start both games to see if he can do more of what Berhalter wants.
Oh, I'd see him go 90 both times. Quite happily.
Like I wouldn't mind seeing like Sergino Dest be called in and maybe we see if he can be a more like attack-minded player for the U.S. Like
he's played on the wing as well for Ajax. Yeah, I could see him there.
I wouldn't mind seeing more experimentation, and so if it ends up being 22 of the 23 names or whatever are people we've already seen called in under Greg Berhalter and have already played minutes under Greg Berhalter, then that doesn't necessarily fill me with enthusiasm.
I hope for extra anesthesia, if that's what
There we go. Yeah.
So again, our roster review show should be like Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah,
right?
Should work. Should be. Self-Q, who is a self-questioner.
So this is a question we...
It's weird. It looks like Daryl?
Yeah, this is a question that we wish we'd got, but I think it's because El Trafico, LAFC versus LA Galaxy, the LA Galaxy, happened so late Sunday night. We didn't get any questions about it, but we thought it was worth asking.
We did.
Right?
Because there was some consternation, at least from the broadcasters, about why Ibrahimovic's second goal, I guess LA's second goal as well, why was he considered onside? Why was he onside when that ball was played?
Because he was in an offside position.
We think so. I don't think we ever saw the line. It looks like he is when that ball
it's
is
Alvarez,
played.
right? Plays it through. And we think Zlatan was offside when he played it through. But...
I can explain it better. Yeah. Sorry. We think he may have been offside, but it doesn't really matter because the fact that it never...
Offside position is what it says,
But also the fact that it never went to VAR indicates right there why that doesn't even matter. Why the offside, whether he was marginally on or marginally off, that they didn't review it says that wasn't the thing that ended up determining whether or not he was actually onside.
What actually determined it was Walker Zimmerman's head.
Yep.
So Walker Zimmerman got to the ball, kind of, and got his head to it and flicked it on. He made a play on the ball.
There it is.
Therefore, no offside offence from the attack because Walker Zimmerman interfered. And this is a rule change from a couple of years ago now, right? This has been around for a while. Yeah.
But the same thing happens for Latif Blessing, right? For LAFC's goal.
Yes.
That basically the shot...
Carlos Vela hits a shot into... what's his name? It's like a food... Polenta. Polenta blocks it with his butt, but it bounces off of Polenta's butt and into the path of Latif Blessing, who again would have been offside, but isn't because of Polenta's butt.
Defensive action.
Action, yeah. Made a defensive action.
And it cancels out because they both ended up getting goals that way. So it's fine. And it ends up 3-3. That game was great. That game was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
To the extent that even though I knew the final score, when we had it on in the office today and like the final 10 minutes, I was sort of like, ooh, maybe something's going to happen.
I kept watching because the LAFC kept having chances. I would say Bob Bradley's decision to sub out Carlos Vela. Vela obviously disagreed, right? Threw his armband to the floor, did some swearing on national television. Asked Bob Bradley, what are you doing?
Yep.
LAFC had a bunch of chances after Vela came off, and Vela had been limping, and he's very important for the rest of the season.
Yep.
You don't want to damage Carlos Vela, right? I think there was a bit of team protection of Vela from Bob Bradley there.
But I look forward to that game being the conference final. That would be more than fine with me.
Glorious.
Yes.
Glorious.
I'm pretty excited. And I had Seattle-Portland had that same vibe as well, that even though I knew the score when I was rewatching it, there was still an element of like, oh, but are they going to score? And then I believe Portland did, but then it was called back for offside.
Yeah.
And even then, I was sort of like into it, like, okay, maybe they'll score again, though, knowing the final score.
Did you and Ryan talk about the first 33 minutes of that game?
Just that it was.
Did.
Well, yeah. Do you want to hear my thoughts on it, or do you just want to listen to it?
I think I just want to listen to that.
Well, what did you think of the first 33 minutes?
I thought it was quite an effective protest.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought
because the atmosphere was just dead.
I thought the sound engineers tried to deal with that as best they could.
They turned the gain up as much as they
Yes,
could.
they did, which I was saying to Ryan was hilarious to me because then they had to then correct it really fast because when a player came too close to the mic, it was way too loud.
Yeah,
and they had to adjust it really fast. Yeah.
You could hear the shoelaces moving.
Yes, they tried very hard to make it seem as though there was still plenty of noise when there definitely was not.
Interesting that the fans were able to put MLS in that position. Put it that way, yeah. Or the broadcasters. All right, one more question?
Yeah.
From Ben Harold. Ben Harold wants to know, it's a Schalke versus Bayern inspired question. Did you and Ryan talk Schalke Bayern?
We did.
So listeners, if you haven't heard that, it didn't go well for Schalke.
It did not. We kind of held off talking a lot about Schalke just for me to say that, like, I think my question I asked Ryan was, like, is this a new look Bayern, which isn't that much of a new look, Bayern being
Lewandowski scoring a bunch of goals?
Yeah. Is it them being very good, Schalke being very bad, or maybe both? And I think Ryan kind of aired on, no, this is Bayern being very good and looking very cohesive. I still have my concerns about Schalke.
I have concerns about Schalke. I don't have concerns about Weston McKennie. I think he had a pretty decent game for a team that lost 3. It's like he was the guy doing the running and most the tackling and the connecting in midfield. I feel a little bit like his teammates let him down.
It was a thing that you and I say often about Bob Bradley, that he's asked to do, or Michael Bradley, excuse me, that he's asked to do too much for the U.S. national team.
Yeah.
That's what this felt like for Weston McKennie. That it was like, hey, mark that guy, but also mark the guy who's 15 yards away. Yeah. And insanely enough, there were times when he did that.
Yep.
When he marked a guy and also closed somebody else down 15 yards away and did both simultaneously.
Ooh, but they still lost 3-0.
They did.
So Ben's question is, do you think McKennie could handle the lone, quote, controlling 6, unquote, role Berhalter seems to like for the US? This is the Michael Bradley role. So based on what we saw from Weston McKennie, could he handle that Michael Bradley role for the United States? I'm going to give a quick answer, which is yes.
Okay. Why do you say yes?
Because some of the passing I saw from McKennie under pressure just made me think, yeah, he's not going to get himself in trouble. And he's also going to add an extra dimension. When he inevitably drives forward a little bit, he's going to add an extra dimension to that US midfield. Okay. I still prefer him as the 8 because I think it gives him more freedom to just run around everywhere. And he's got the energy and the legs and the smarts to do it in the right places. So I actually like him alongside Bradley, like we saw in the Gold Cup. But if we're going to try someone else instead of Bradley in that role, instead of Will Trapp, instead of Tyler Adams, frankly, I think Weston McKennie because of the intelligence of his passing.
My only hesitation there is similar to I'm trying to think of a player who I just don't know if he is as inclined to sit deep to just stay off the ball and not be involved. I think he wants to roam, and I think he wants to make plays.
Yeah, and that's why I said I prefer him at the 8.
Yeah. And I think that like my FIFA references are pretty out of date, so I apologize.
FIFA 95? Do you think you can run away from the referee and not get a card?
I mean, that'd be great. I hope so. What I was going to say is, like, when you move a player around from, like, if they're a right winger naturally and you move them to left wing, how they'll go from like an 85 to an 82.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't kill their performance, as opposed to like if you take a striker and put them at defense, they go from like an 85 to a 30. Mm-hmm. I think of it like that. Like, I think of him if he's an 85 playing as like that number 8 for the U.S. and you move him to a number 6, I think he drops to like an 80. Like, I think he's still fine and still okay, but I don't think it like accentuates the things that make him a very unique player and a very good player.
I would disagree with the word unique though, because I think Tyler Adams has that
unique is the wrong word.
Energy.
You're right.
And I think we could have Tyler Adams running around in the 8 spot.
Yeah.
And I trust McKennie's passing more than Adams. Like, do you remember the ball if listeners haven't seen this, in the 82nd minute of Schalke versus Bayern, McKennie like strides through midfield, puts a through ball for Burgstaller. Really should have been an assist, right? Because Burgstaller goes around Manuel Neuer and then somehow with an open goal hits the post. Like, that ball was impressive, but previous to that, there's that one where he's under pressure from Lewandowski and he doesn't play the obvious ball. He sees this like interesting crossfield ball which starts the whole play. I remember you being really impressed by it when we rewatched it in the office. That's the stuff I like from McKennie at the 6. He will see clever passes that no one else can see, and that might be the key to unlocking things for the United States. I don't disagree that you lose the running everywhere, closing people down, all action Weston McKennie, but I don't think we've got anyone better except for Michael Bradley at that passing role.
I mean, I think I might disagree with you a little bit, because I have moments where I think of Tyler Adams as being very good in distribution in terms of short passing and long passing and through balls. And I think where some of my hesitation with McKennie comes from, and maybe playing as a number 6 like alleviates some of this, but like it's worth noting that Bayern free kick that Robert Lewandowski scores, it's because Weston McKennie commits a foul. And he commits a foul because basically he runs out to try to put pressure on somebody. Not necessarily his fault, but he's trying to make a play because somebody is wide open.
Yeah.
And he basically, it looks like Michael Bradley. That frustration that people have about Michael Bradley just getting rounded really easily, that's what happens.
And I think
and then he has to pull the player down. It's a free kick.
I don't disagree. I think it's almost a problem it's the other side of the coin. Like, Bradley maybe doesn't go and pressure the ball enough and pressure the man enough. McKennie maybe goes too fast, too much, right? McKennie's almost more like Jermaine Jones, which is kind of his role model at Schalke when he was a kid, right? Where you could say that he's a little undisciplined in terms of he's going all in to get the ball, he's going to charge someone down, and that could be a different kind of problem than Michael Bradley doing the defensive crouch and backing off.
Yeah, I mean,
so we kind of lose either way.
I mean, that's literally my primary concern with that, is that like. Because he's a very intelligent player, obviously. He's playing professional soccer in the Bundesliga for what should be a very good team. But with all that said, I still have that fear that, he is going to go, roaming out to try to make a play, which is literally what we don't need that number 6 to do.
Yeah. So maybe not just yet as a 20-year-old, but maybe it's a position he matures into as a 23, 24-year-old. And if people would stick with Michael Bradley for just a couple of years, we might have a smooth transition there.
Yes, okay. I'm with that, and I will also add that, similar to me saying, I wouldn't mind seeing Jordan Morris play as a central striker because we don't have that much depth there, you are correct that we do not have that much depth, or at least depth I am comfortable with outside of Michael Bradley. So, yeah, maybe we do see if Weston McKennie can do it, because all he can do is be given the chance and see if he lives up to it. So, why not?
And flip side of me saying I've enjoyed watching Pulisic at Chelsea because then Chelsea are really fun to watch. Oh, Schalke. I love watching McKennie. I hate watching Schalke. Even under David Wagner.
I'm real nervous about this season because I think what they were trying to do is play basically a 4-4-2 defensively deep when they needed to.
Right.
When they were trying to step out and provide pressure, I think one of the center backs would step into the midfield, and then I think it was McKennie who was allowed to step further forward, and it became almost a 3-4-1-2. But with all that said, there kept being a spare Bayern player in central midfield every single time, which is why he kept having to make plays. And it also just felt like Schalke had our version of a high press system when we play indoor, where sometimes we're on it and sometimes it's pressing. And then they all go running.
Two people forget.
Yes.
And then so everybody presses, but there's two wide open dudes.
And then as soon as those two guys remember and they go to press, they're bypassed. And now everybody else has to scramble. And I know
people who've played with me on that team know that gives me an aneurysm.
It sure does. And so I know we're very early in the season and things could certainly turn around. But there were just moments in this game where I was like, "Ew, boy, Schalke have not quite learned how to do that." And then to your earlier point, Schalke have not yet learned how to finish either.
Oh, and speaking of that extra man in midfield, if you don't mind me indulging me on this a little bit, do you remember the whole Greg Berhalter, Nick Lima role, Tyler Adams role?
Yeah.
Where the right back would, when we attack, go into central midfield? Mm-hmm. That's what Bayern did with David Alaba. I don't know if you spotted this or not, but David Alaba was their left back. But when they attacked, he would sometimes go down the wing. He would sometimes go alongside Joshua Kimmich and form and create an extra man in midfield. That thoroughly confused Schalke. It was part of the reason McKennie had to run all over the place. So it was just really interesting to see it, to see a team execute it effectively and see it really work.
And to see it used in a varied approach, because I think the key thing you said there was that sometimes David Alaba would still bomb down that wing.
You would still see him down by the left corner flag getting crossed in, and then sometimes you would see him in central midfield, and it's really hard to predict where he would go.
Yeah. Whereas I think, I believe I'm correct in saying that when we saw Nick Lima doing that for the national team, it was pretty consistently moving centrally.
Yeah, there was no width.
And maybe that's what they were building towards, but you're absolutely right.
That was my guess.
That caused some big problems for Schalke in figuring out where David Alaba was at any given moment and why there were suddenly overloads everywhere. It's
really hard to set up, right? Like we might get overloaded down the left when Alaba comes flying down. We might get overloaded in central midfield if he goes central. We just don't know what this guy's going to do.
We do not. We do know Bayern going to be real good.
Yeah.
Real good.
As per usual. Mm-hmm. Any other weekend action notes, or would you like to move to scouting?
I think we can move on to scouting.
Okay. All right. So, the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Looks like we have a good chunk of reports to get to.
We certainly do.
I would like to start with Philip Gibson, not least because he's first on the list.
All right.
Philip Gibson is scouting Pierre da Silva. Remember Pierre da Silva? 21-year-old American winger for Memphis 901. That's not where I remember him.
Things have happened.
Philip says da Silva and Orlando City mutually decided to part ways.
That was a big thing that happened.
Allowing Pierre to join Memphis 901, who play their first game on August 28th. Are they a NISA team?
I'm guessing so. I'm not fully understanding what's happening. Maybe they're playing some friendlies to get ready. Who knows for sure? Okay,
I don't often do this, but I'm going to Google mid-show, just Memphis 901, and see Memphis OPQ. Nope. My thumb's too fat.
I think you should definitely narrate everything you're doing right now, and I mean that sincerely, because I think listeners need to know the process that's going into this Googling. So you put in the wrong words, now you figured it out?
Memphis 901 playing the USL Championship.
There we are.
There we go.
But they play their first game on August 28th?
Maybe he'll play his first
game
on
he will,
August 28th?
I'm going to guess it's that. He will play his first game on August 28th for Memphis 901. There we go.
All right.
Okay, problem solved. Kaz Tidrick, scouting Robbie Mertz, 22-year-old American midfielder for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Robbie went the full 90 in the Hounds' 1-0 home victory over Loudoun United. Robbie appeared to play a more defensive role than he usually does, including making several key tackles to help keep the clean sheet.
Well done, Robbie. Mark Counterman is scouting Christian Kappis. Is it Kappis? Christian Kappis.
We do this every time. We've never come to a conclusion.
Mark, let us know. 20-year-old American midfielder for Hobro. All right. Christian is set to make his 5th straight start for Hobro against Odense Bold Club, cementing his role in the starting lineup after turning 20 on August 13th. Hobro currently sits 8th in the Danish Superliga.
Do you think their opponent this weekend play bold soccer or not bold soccer?
I'd say they're a bold club.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Ed Ritter, scouting Ben Mines.
Shaved heads all around.
Of course. 19-year-old American attacker for New York Red Bulls 2. For the first time in many months, Ben started and went the full 90 for New York Red Bulls 2 in their 2-1 win versus Nashville. So now we have our answer. Oh, wait, no, Nashville, not Memphis. Very different cities.
Yeah, Nashville's in USL, but will be in MLS very soon.
I'm confused by things.
James Porter is scouting Troy Parrott, 17-year-old Irish striker for Tottenham. And if you heard our Tottenham preview with Nathan Clark, he's basically the only other centre forward that's not Harry Kane.
Hey!
James says Troy Parrott had quite a roller coaster week. Just hours after being named to Ireland's provisional squad for the Euro 2020 qualifiers, he banged in 2 goals for the Spurs under-23s against Man City's under-23s. The City defence eventually had enough and clattered into him repeatedly, hacking him down from behind in a yellow card offence. He was subbed out soon after, and the Irish Mirror reported the injury will put his dream debut on September 5th in doubt.
Yikes. Not great. Also not great, sort of, is the report from James Jones, scouting Andrew Carlton, 19-year-old American attacker for Atlanta United, specifically Atlanta United 2.
Okay.
Andrew got his the start with Atlanta United 2 in a 2-1 win over the Swope Park Rangers. He started again this past weekend against Hartford Athletic. His performance was a classic good Andrew, bad Andrew. In the 57th minute, he pounced on a deflected pass into the box and finished from a tight angle to draw Atlanta United 2 level, excuse me. Then he picked up an MLS assist when he played a beautiful diagonal to a teammate who crossed to the head of Brandon Vasquez for a go-ahead goal just 2 minutes later.
Okay, so this is going well.
And then in the 85th minute, with the score tied, he lost a challenge, committed an intentional foul, and a cynical foul at that deserved a yellow, which was later upgraded to a red card because of either his language or the argument from Hartford or just general lack of sporting nature of the challenge itself.
I'm going to guess his language, right? Hartford can't protest a yellow into a red.
No.
But Andrew Cotton's mouth can get a yellow to a red.
It certainly can.
Any players can.
And the 10-man Atlanta Twos would go on to lose on a late header.
Oh. Marcus Goodrich is scouting Shiloh Tracy, the 21-year-old English right-winger for Tottenham. Marcus says Shiloh scored in his first game of the season with Tottenham's under-23s against Liverpool, got an assist against Man City. Tracy has played an important role on the wings so far, despite rumours that he'd be moved on this summer.
Grey Hair Gaming scouting Indiana Vassilev, the 18-year-old American midfielder for Aston Villa. Indiana was subbed off in the 50th minute of Villa's Premier League 2 match against Swansea, not Sweden. In addition, a leaked first-team squad list for Villa had Indiana listed as number 36, which maybe means he'll be making a low-level cup appearance this season.
EFL Cup, here we come.
Let's hope.
Russell Findlay is scouting Eric Palmer-Brown.
Remember him?
I know what happened here. 22-year-old American centre-back on loan at Austria Wien from Manchester City. Russell says EPB got his first start for Wien and went 72 minutes. And was then given a straight red.
Oh.
Sent off in his debut.
Not great. Not what you want. Chase Poole scouting Gedson Fernandez, the 20-year-old Portuguese midfielder for Benfica. Gedson has been hurt all summer with a metatarsal fracture and has missed the start of the season. He has still been linked with a number of Premier League clubs, most loudly Wolves.
Winners of the TSS Derby.
Of course. We're going to get that every time. I can't wait. But Benfica selling...
Only till February.
Oh, good. But Benfica selling João Felix this summer means they haven't been too inclined to sell.
Fair enough. Scott Friedman is scouting Emre Moore, a former sort of rival of Christian Pulisic to get minutes at Dortmund, right?
Former.
Scott Friedman scouting
Emphasis
Emre
on
Moore.
former.
He's a 22-year-old Turkish winger on loan at Galatasaray from Celta Vigo. Moore was loaned to Galatasaray to play under Fatih Terim, who managed him at the 2016 Euros, which was also roughly the last time he looked promising.
Burn, but also accurate. Kyle of...
That's a hilarious scouting.
It's real good. It's real good. Well done, Scott. Well done, Kyle of Michigan, for scouting Jonathan Gonzalez, even though it makes me sad. Jonathan Gonzalez is the 20-year-old Mexican midfielder from Monterrey. For the first time since Tata Martino took over as coach, Gonzalez has been called up to the Mexican national team camp.
That's to play us.
Yes. Bummer. Previously, Gonzalez only played in 2 friendlies for the Mexican team in 2018. This is all welcome news since Jonathan has only played in 1 of the first 5 league games for Monterrey in the Apertura.
I did not know that because normally we think he starts every game, right?
We do, but he doesn't.
Final report from today. Mark Spicer is scouting Michael Cuisance, the 20-year-old French... Excuse me?
Cuisance.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know. I'm just getting fancy.
20-year-old French midfielder for Bayern Munich.
Bayern Munich?
A day after his 20th birthday, Mikhail joined Bayern from Borussia Mönchengladbach for a reported €10 million transfer fee. It seems low. Rumours were that he was unhappy with the amount of playing time at Gladbach, but will find it equally hard to break through at Bayern. Yeah, no kidding. Where he will likely back up Thiago in Bayern's midfield and some other guys as well.
I wonder if that is like...
He's highly rated, though.
He is. I do wonder if that's like a legitimate excuse in Germany, though. Like, I'm not playing for Gladbach, so I'm going to move to Bayern, where, like, it's Bayern. It's fine. I don't have to play for them. It's more acceptable not to play there.
Schalke need players. Join Schalke.
Yes. Schalke need to spend money? Maybe they don't want to do that?
They need a non-Bergstaller striker, in my opinion.
They need a lot of things, including maybe a new owner.
All right. Thank you to everybody for the scouting reports. I made some scouting assignments over the weekend. I actually spent my Saturday night assigning people with
living it up.
Living it up on a Saturday night. If you've signed up for the Scouting Network, haven't received a player, please email me, Daryl@totalsoccershow.com.
Subject line, get it together.
Oh, yeah.
All
Subject
caps.
line, get it together, all caps, and I will get it together.
Middle finger emoji in there, too.
If you would like to support the Total Soccer Show, you can be a silent scout where you don't actually have to scout anyone, or you can be a scout. You go to totalsoccershow.com/join. All the details will be there.
All right. And then we also have the whispering scout option, right? It's between normal scout and silent scout, where you're just
you send your reports in very small font.
He did okay today.
2-point font.
Yes. Perfect.
Oh, Taylor, I've missed talking
Please
to you.
don't do that.
All right, so we will be back on Wednesday with US national team roster review.
You sure about that?
I mean, again, anesthesia. It could be weird, right? I'm having that biopsy. I will be in Boston. Taylor will be here. Sergio Dest will be on the roster.
Yes.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
I'd be so mad if he's
And
not.
I'm excited to see Jordan Morris at right back. Let's make this happen, folks. Let's make this happen. And then no Josh Sargent, but yes, Gialsi Zardes.
Yep.
And no, who else do we want to see that's marginally exciting?
7 Will Traps.
No Christian Pulisic, but yes, Christian Roldan.
There we go.
Perfect.
Oh dear.
And Michael Bradley starts in 2 positions.
And if you want more Total Soccer Show, you got 3 options.
And Jurgen Klinsmann coaches.
You could listen to Soccer 101, which I know a lot of people have, but some people haven't.
Yep.
You know who you are. You could listen to Who Kicked the Corner Flag, should be out on Tuesday, I believe, which is the Premier League quiz show will be on, reviewing the weekend action once again. And then this Thursday, we should be, unless they cancel us, we should be on the Sports Illustrated podcast with Grant Wall.
We should be.
Grant interviewed us about the Total Soccer Show. I think it was a really good interview. I sort of forgot I was being interviewed and just had a good time chatting.
Just thought we were chatting? You forgot it was recorded and on the record?
Yes.
I couldn't believe you said all the offensive things you said.
I know,
crazy.
Right? So definitely listen to that Sports Illustrated show to hear all the offensive things I said. Taylor Rockwell.
I think Panda Bear should be allowed to exist, Daryl. I can't believe you felt that way.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners and Panda Bears, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon.